I'd like to once again stress that Aseh Rav in the Mishnayot in Avot doesn't mean I'm obligated to do this. A lot of people misunderstand this and tell people, I've heard it from many of my students, that I'm obligated to get a Rav. The Mishnayot and Avot don't obligate us in most cases for anything. It's just very good advice. And the advice makes sense because if you have a Rav, right, you'll be able to discuss things in Judaism that you need to discuss in order to get clarity. There's no obligations in Masechet Avot for the most part. There may be certain exceptions, but for the most part, it's just very, very good advice, and we should take that advice. Now, with regard to the first thing, studying Torah, so we have to get the right teacher. The Talmud actually says, it's not the Talmud, it's a Medrash, says, La'olam yilmad adam mimisha libo chafetz. A person should learn from someone who their heart desires, meaning somebody that, number one, they have a rapport with, number two, they feel that they're able to study Torah with them. They're clear. They feel that person's bothered with the same questions they're bothered with. Many times I had teachers in the past that they were very great Talmidei Chachamim, but they didn't answer my questions because they were bothered with different questions than I was. If I had asked them the questions, maybe they would have asked them. But the class itself didn't really go through the Gemara the way I would like. Many times I had teachers that were big lamdanim, but they weren't so clear in what they were saying. And therefore, it's important that someone who's studying Torah, this is more maybe for people in yeshiva and for certain people who are putting their children through yeshiva, that the child should feel like mimisha libo chafetz, from somebody which my heart really feels and desires to learn from. I have a good rapport with that person. I think he has a clear explanation of things. He's answering my questions. And, of course, the Rambam does add that the person should also be, and we'll talk about this a little later as well, that the Rav should be a model. I'll quote the Rambam in a moment, but this was always an issue. Let's say the Rav is not a model, but he's a very good teacher, right? It's just that he doesn't live what he teaches, right? And this is a big question, whether we should study how to learn Torah from someone like this. There are, by the way, opinions that say you can. As long as you're not learning how to live Torah, you can learn how to study Torah from somebody that leaves a lot to be desired. Other people, and the Rambam's mashma like that, the Rambam says, V'chein a Rav she'eino holech b'derech tova, a Rav that doesn't go in the proper way, afal pisha chacham gadolhu, even though he's a great Talmud Chacham, v'cholam tzrichim lo, and the whole nation needs him, ein mislamdim mimenu ad shuvo limutav. We don't learn from him until he actually returns to being a good person. And the Rambam brings the Gemara that brings the pasuk, ki siftei choen yishmeru das v'tori yivachshu mipihu ki malach Hashem tzvakos hu. The Gemara drashes from over here that if your Rav is doma, if your Rav is similar to a malach, you should learn from him. If he's not, you shouldn't learn from him. Now, does it mean literally a malach in the sense that he's such a great tzaddik? He has to be a person of pure intention. He has to be an honest person, a person that has good midot, right? The Rambam says in Hilchot Talmud Torah, those are the types of Rabbanim we should learn from. That Rambam being said, there are people that do say if you can differentiate between the person, his learning and the way he lives his life, there is room to say you could get a derech in learning from someone like this, but most opinions are to stay away from those people because they're not really role models. So that's with regard to Talmud Torah. With regard to halacha, of course, you have Rabbanim who are Balei Halacha, Poskim, and you should develop a relationship with one of them. We'll talk a little bit about what the conditions are a little bit later. But one thing we do have to know now is, with regard to halacha, we always get this question. I certainly always get the question, or people make a statement that you can't pick and choose. You have to take a Rav and do whatever he says. And that's absolutely not true. With regard to halacha, you can have a number of Rabbanim. Sometimes you could have experts in different fields, and that's why you'd have other Rabbanim. And even if you have two Rabbanim experts in the field, you're actually allowed to choose and take one or the other. Of course, if one Rav's on vacation, obviously you're going to take another Rav. You're not going to wait for the Rav to come back on vacation. So obviously you can use more than one Rav. So can I pick and choose according to what I know these rabbis are very lenient in? Yes, the answer is I can do that. Of course, if I do ask a Rav and he gives me a psak, meaning he actually makes a decision in halakha, I can't then go to another Rav except under very extreme conditions. In Shulchan Aruch, it seems pretty clear. You have to accept that psak. But before I actually ask him, I could decide to go to one Rav for A, for question A, and another Rav for question B. Okay. I'm going to read something from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in a minute, but I'd like to first go to when we talk about hashkafa. Can I pick and choose with hashkafa as well? And the answer is over here. We can even go one step further. Even if you ask the Rav a hashkafic question, you could then go to another Rav and get his opinion as well. Reb Chaim Volozhin in his commentary Ruach Chaim on Avot, on the Mishnah, it says Mar Be'etza, Mar Be'tvuna, said it very clear. Mar Be'etza, when you keep asking people, you get more of an understanding. You see different sides of the coin, and therefore you can make a better decision. And therefore, we can say that not only just by, like I said, by halacha, if you ask the Rav, you have to follow him. Here, even if you ask the Rav and it just doesn't sit well, you don't have to follow him. I do want to read for you something that someone asked Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and Reb Shlomo Zalman was asked about if you have to actually ask one Rav all the time. And he writes and this fellow writes a quote of Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Adam einenu chayav l'shol tamid Rav achad et kol shelotav. Person doesn't have to ask one Rav all his questions. Here it's very clear. Asur lo kol pam leleches l'shol et Rav shemekel boto inyan. But he says it's not permitted to find out all the coolers of every Rav and then go to them. And we'll discuss that in a moment. Binyonei hashkafa lo shayach chiv leleches Rav achad. With regard to hashkafa, it's not even, we can't even discuss. It's so obvious that you don't have to go to one Rav. Uvacholi in yochel tamid lisholet mishu rotzeh. He can ask whoever he wants. Besveika d'oraita tzorch lachmir. When it comes to a doubt in Torah, he should be more stringent. Yesh keil shaholchim l'rav shemekel b'yani tamim. There are those who go to Rabbanim with regard to when it comes to a Hilchot Nida question and a Dam question, a blood question, they go to the most Mekel Rav, right? The author who wrote this says, I understood that it's not Asur, but it's not Mishubach, he calls it. It's not praiseworthy. But again, if we're talking about being Asur, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says very clear, you don't have to ask one Rav, but you shouldn't. He says you should not really go to Rabbanim, every Rav that's Mekel in the area, always look for the coolest. Now, I just like to explain that for a moment. Shlomo Zalman used the word Asur. I don't know if I would go that far, but the way I understand it, even if you say Asur, would be that it's just not healthy to always look for a kula, because basically you're sending yourself a message is that Torah is a tax, and I have to pay this tax called halacha. Right? And in taxes, of course, you have to always find legal loopholes. Of course, they have to be legal. But legal loopholes you want to find because there's no mitzvah to pay taxes. But with regard to Torah, we should not look at Torah as a tax. We should look at it as a way of life. If Torah is a way of life, then I shouldn't be looking getting out of a certain lifestyle as if, so to speak, it's a burden on me. And that's the problem hashkafically, meaning in hashkafa, there's a problem looking at things this way. But if you really need a heter, meaning if you get this heter, you'll be able to serve God even better because you won't have this burden on you, then certainly you can go to any Rav that will give you a heter. For instance, let's say birth control, right? Your Rav doesn't give an easy heter for birth control. You can go to another Rav because having birth control will help you raise the child that you have, let's say, already in a better way, or you won't be as stressed getting pregnant so often, right? So you'll basically be able to serve God better because you're getting this heter, and therefore that's 100% acceptable.